Good morning. Thank you for being here this morning. And I think our speaker this morning, the first one, said what I'm going to tell you right now. It's really weird for a creative to be up so early and speaking. I'm a Chicagoan. I went to bed at 3 a.m. mostly because I was watching the Cubs, but also because I don't get motivated to start creating what I'm creating until about midnight. So my team, my content ninjas, are over there, and they'll tell you that they get emails from me like at 1 in the morning with our project list and stuff for the next day, because I need time to get going. So hopefully I'll be chipper and happy. I think you'll be okay this morning. So as you heard this morning, I'm a storyteller. This is what I do for a living, and I'm excited to be a storyteller in today's environment because we are in a world that for the first time ever is telling stories all the time, everywhere, in any given way that you can possibly do. So for someone that's always bubbling up, wanting to tell a story, it's a great time to be in this environment and in this kind of work. So I'm excited to be here and tell you a little bit about how you can possibly find your happily ever after in your content marketing journey. And I invite you to use the event hashtags if you have them. Follow me at NewsDude. I'll be happy to continue our conversation virtually afterwards as well. As I think of happily ever after, I mentioned that people are telling stories all the time nowadays, which is cool. Recently, LinkedIn did a study that said, oh, the screen's a little bit blown out, so we'll try to work out for this. Recently, LinkedIn did a story that showed that 4.6 billion pieces of content are produced every single day. That is astounding to consider. Everyone, because of the rise of mobile technology, has become a content creator at some level. So as storytellers, our job is to figure out how do we take those stories and make something cool out of them, and make them penetrate and make them worthwhile. When I started in this space many, many years ago, I remember I was just talking with some of the team earlier how we were trying to figure out what do we call this space that we're in. Is it emerging media? Is it integrated? Is it new media? What's happening? How do we capture all this stuff? And there's still really not one set definition or name for it because it just evolves so fast. I taught at West Virginia for about 7 years, and about 3 times we had to refresh the course altogether because everything that we were teaching was already obsolete. And I remember the minute we turned in our plans for the next quarter of what we were teaching, I always felt like I'm already behind the 8 ball because everything changes the minute you write it down. One of the things I made a decision on was never to use a textbook, because to me, again, the textbooks were obsolete the minute you put them out. So it was always, here's a reading list, and we'll keep catching up as things go along. But that's because things are moving at such a fast pace. Why does this matter, though, that things are changing at such a fast pace and there's so much content? Because consumers feel positive about companies that create content, especially content that's custom to them. So as content marketers, as storytellers, our job is to figure out how do we get those stories to be narrowed in so that folks feel really excited and want to connect with you. And that's the biggest thing, the breakthrough. In order to break through, we have to make that human connection. And more what we're learning and knowing about brand storytelling is the brands that are being the most successful are the ones that are going beyond just flashy, look at me strategies, but are saying, I get you, I know you, let's have a relationship together. Let's be human together. And when I think of all this, all of our storytelling has something to do with this. I don't know if you've ever seen one of these. It's been a long time. This is a ball of yarn. I'm supposed to be able to unroll it. Here it is. We're going to talk about this in a little while, but let me just get it going right now. Remind me to come back to this. But a lot of our storytelling today has to do with that. And what that has to do is ethos. It's a mindset that I embrace every day as a content storyteller. It's something that drives how I develop anything that I do for any of my clients. And it goes back to this one phrase here. As a content marketer, I want to be able to tell any story to any audience in the best way, period. I often go into brand meetings and client meetings and meetings with whoever wants to hear this, and I just tell them that. You know, they say, well, we are marketing this. Fine, whatever story you want. Well, here's our, fine, whatever the audience is. But what about wherever you want to tell it? We got to pull back and figure out how do we get to the point that we can do this and make it effective. So what I want to do is spend 20 minutes or so telling you about how to make any story to any audience in the best way come to life for you. This is the model that my content team uses all the time. It's guided every turn of what we do in my career. You heard about experiences that I've had with clients like Taco Bell and MTV and stuff, and I'll share some of that stuff with you. But it always comes back to that content. And when I look at this, the key parts of this, we're going to talk about story, we're going to talk about audience, we're going to talk about best way. To me, the most important part of this is the story. At the heart of every good content marketing is a good story. And a good story comes back to this. This is a common thread. In filmmaking, every scriptwriter that writes a film script creates a red through line of content story. There's a beginning, a middle, and an end. You've got to tie it all in together. Because you want people to be able to know how the story relates from end to end. In content marketing, we can do the same thing. If we're able to identify what that common thread is, what that through line is for your brand, you have an opportunity to have storytelling that breaks through at any point. So when we look at the common thread, it's that brand's DNA, it's that ethos, it's who you truly are. What I have found working with brands around the world is that there's many brands that are a little confused. There's many brands that are trying to do everything for everyone and not having much success because they're not true to who they are. And so when they put content out and materials out, the consumer has a challenge sometimes figuring out, how do I relate? Because it just feels like things being thrown at you instead of an engagement trying to be created. So I encourage you to consider always, how do you find that common thread in that story? And I want to give you a couple of examples of brands that have found their common thread and are doing really well. Let's take a look at this one. Always good when it autoplays, but we will manual play.
Follow you wherever you may go. There isn't an ocean too deep, a mountain so high it can keep me away from the love. You are my destiny.
Wraps up, I'll tell you a little bit about this.
Where you go, I follow. You'll always be my true love.
This is obviously an Apple commercial. Have any of you seen this before? It's one of the most beautiful commercials that's out there right now, and every time I see it, I stop and I have to watch it, and it's so gorgeous to watch. And I watch it as a marketer from several points, and as a filmmaker, I watch it from how did they do that kind of gee whiz. There's a lot of CGI, a lot of wonderful things. I had a friend that said, how did they, one of my nephew's kids who said, how did they get all those balloons to move at the same time? You know, little magic of movie making, of course. But I look at it also from a marketer that's trying to understand, how does this tie back to that brand? And when I look at Apple advertising and marketing, it's very clear to me who they are. They don't try to deviate. They don't try to tell you, you know, there's something that they're not. They're always at their core about those experiences, about those moments. And their product almost comes as a secondary thing. Their product, they believe in their product. They love their product. They know that their product will help you get to those experiences. So they're always bringing you those moments in their visuals and their storytelling that helps you understand those experiences matter. It just reminds me also, sometimes some of our clients are saying, but what if our product isn't that good? And I say to you, you have a different problem. You might want to step back and reconsider your product development. If you can't believe in your product, why are you wasting money on advertising for it? People see through the BS, and you know, authenticity is the name of the game. So Apple, a great brand that gets that. Another brand that I work with often is Turtle Wax. Do any of you wax cars or have ever waxed your car? Have any of you ever heard of Turtle Wax?
Yes.
Turtle Wax is one of the oldest American brands. It's been around for about 100 years. And we do all their brand marketing for them. And check out this commercial that they put together recently.
These are no longer cars. They no longer roar, or screech, or skid, or speed. If a lion doesn't hunt, is it still a lion? Don't protect your car so it can look nice. Protect it so it can look mean. Don't fear the wear and tear. Be it. Just be ready for it. Turtle Wax Ice with Smart Shield technology. Protect the body, free the soul.
So this is a commercial that they put out last year. What we love about this commercial is, again, it comes back to who their common thread of who they want to be is. And when you talk to Turtle Wax and their brand team and you ask them, what is Turtle Wax about? Some might say, oh, it's just car wax. Who cares? But for a brand to have longevity, you've got to be more than in that moment a transactional thing. You have to have a reason for being. Turtle Wax has embraced something that they call the go moment. They want to be the people that make you feel excited about going in your life and doing something amazing with your life. Hopefully in a car or an automobile of some sort. In Indonesia, we use a motorcycle instead of the car because that's a more common form of transportation. But if you saw that commercial, it was all about breaking through. It was all about moving forth. It was all about having that go moment and having excitement in your life. And again, when we come back to the common thread, the most success that brands have is when they figure out that purpose. When they figure out something that they can grab onto that impacts the lives of people. And impact, doesn't necessarily need to mean anything beyond the simplicity of what changes in your life because you engage with that product at whatever level that might be. Something that a lot of brands, again, struggle with because they overthink. They try to do too much instead of just pulling it back and figuring out what's the simple common thread. I like to say it's not rocket science. There's 4 key components that I look at that make up what that common thread is. You start off with your history. Understand your brand. Where have you come from? What have you struggled with? What have you succeeded at? What have you lost at? What are you trying to accomplish? Why do you exist? If you come to me and you tell me that all I want to do is sell this widget and I could care less about anything else, then I'm going to say, let's not build a brand strategy. Let's just build a paid media campaign and just get you a lot of clicks and move on. I have a client right now that's in that boat, and for 3 years we've tried very hard to help them be true to their common thread, and they don't care. What we've learned as we step back is the reason they don't care is because their leadership structure is compensated on annual bonuses, and they all have contracts that after those bonuses hit, they can leave. So we've had 4 different marketing directors in 3 years. There is no continuity to this brand. If I told you the name of this brand, which I won't, you'd be shocked because it's one of America's longest running brands, and they're running the brand like it doesn't matter. It happens. They're not really paying attention to their history, who they are, why they matter. Second thing we need to understand is the people. Who are we trying to reach? Why are we trying to reach them? How do you go about developing things that matter to this audience? And we're going to talk a little bit more about people in depth in a few moments, but really understanding the people, and then let's shift it the other way. Who are the people on your team that are making that product come to life? Who's out front telling your story? Who's the one that's in the lab creating? Do they care? When I go to Turtle Wax to their offices, they literally have a lab inside their office facility, and they put glass walls all around. So their marketing team sits right outside, crafting and stuff, but whenever they need inspiration, all they gotta do is like this, and they can see the people actually creating concoctions that are gonna be the next Turtle Wax, which is amazing because you can feel the passion that people have for what they're doing. So that comes out in their product. Their common thread pulls all the way through. They're about making that go moment come to life. We look at the unique offering. What makes you distinctive? What can you do or offer that others don't, even if it's the same service or product? There are many times that there's 45 products within the same range. Why should yours be the one that I pick? You need to understand that about your brand. What makes you different? What makes you stand out? How do you approach what you're doing in a unique way? And let me just say, it's okay to be a one-trick pony. If you only have one product in your SKU and that's all you want to do, awesome. Just do that the best possible way you can and own that. And then what's your passion points? And I don't know if you can get from me, but I try to be a little passionate in my life. What will make people excited about your brand? What's going to make them want to pick you in that lineup across the way. I'm sure many of you have seen when you're testing out new products that are going to be in the marketplace, we often create an image that shows a store aisle, and you put all the products up on the shelves, and you want to compare and see what pops out from you. And often that's how we determine how do we change the product shade or the colors or whatever the things are, because we want to be able to walk by and we want people to say, hey, that's the one. Often you can do that also visually, virtually, in video, whatever. You want people to do that. Hey, what's going on with that? It comes from that passion point. What makes you excited? It gives the people a reason to latch on. So anytime you stray from any of these things, from who you are, from what you're about, from why you're doing what you're doing, you stand a chance of stumbling, because people will recognize that. Think about your relationships with your friends and your family. Anytime someone starts acting a little different, you're like, hey, something's wrong today. Something's going off, or is off from you today. You notice these things. Same thing with a brand. Anytime you start trying to do something that you're not, people notice. And that's not to say that you can't try many different styles and approaches. Just always anchor them back to who you truly are, to your common thread, so that it always is authentic to you. And then you can try whatever you want. It's that simple. So we start with a story. Have a great story. Understand how to build that story. Understand the things that motivate that story. Then we talk about your audience. We want to get consumers to talk about our brand, right? So the evolution that's happened today because of digital is that our efforts now are not just about how we want to talk about the brand. Our efforts should be, how do we want consumers to talk about our brand? We want to give the ownership to them. But that doesn't mean that we can't curate the experience. So if we're doing our jobs well, the consumer owns our story with talking points that we've provided in a good way that doesn't make them feel like, oh, they're just trying to get me to toe the company line or the party line. So to be effective at this, we need to have a very deep understanding of who our audience is. And I know, again, traditionally in marketing, that means we do all the demographic and psychographic studies. I know that you're 35 to 45. I know that you're mostly male. I know that you're 85 plus household income, and you have a master's degree and a kid and a dog, blah, blah, blah. Awesome. But do you know what makes me excited? Do you know what TV show I'm watching? Do you know that I like to stay up at 2 in the morning and drink a coffee while I'm chatting with my girlfriend? Do you know that, I get excited, I hate clowns, I don't want to look at clowns? I hate clowns for real. So in the digital environment that we're in, we have an ability to go deeper and really understand this person, again, from that human perspective, understanding who they are as a person, so that then we can relate to them very, very clearly. And what that leads to is very personalized approaches to marketing. So another cool thing about the digital environment is that we create things that can have a variety of different looks, depending on who it is that you're targeting to. It still comes back to your common thread, but it has a different reflection out there, depending on who you're talking to. I'll just encourage you, variety is the spice of life, so you don't want to be a brand that always brings out the same trick over and over. One of the things my team always hears me say is, I don't want to do what we just did. I don't want to do what our company's done for 10 years. Every single experience is a new experience. And like any relationship, I want freshness, I want excitement, I want newness. I just always want to be authentic to who I am. So let me show you 2 brands that have understood their audience and target their materials very clearly to who their audience is. I want to just reiterate, we have to go beyond just the established or the expected psychographic or demographic information that we can easily get. The puzzle in the missing puzzle piece in understanding audiences is understanding emotions, connections, experiences, mindsets, shifts. And that goes, again, in customizing that, because that changes coast to coast, whatever the demographic is you're trying to reach, whoever the person is you're trying to reach. There's a lot of value in understanding the nuance and the depth of that. So, and let me just also add in there, it's important to understand how they communicate. So, do they like to use cell phones? Yes. 100% of the US market has a saturation for mobile technology. About 75% or something like that is on a smartphone level. Mobile is in. If you are talking multicultural audiences, it goes even higher because it's the equalizer. With a mobile phone, the multicultural audience now feels like they can play at the same level as anyone else, that had that expensive desktop at home. So mobile matters. How do they use mobile? Do they like to swipe? Do they like to watch a video? Will they pause? Do they like to have to jump off of an app to go onto a web? What if they're using Wi-Fi or 4G? What's the differences in that? It's important to understand all those nuances to make sure that you can break through. And then you layer in their decision drivers, their feelings about the brand, the category. How do they feel about their purchase opportunities, price points, issues, attitudes? Do they care if you have a cause or not? All these things matter in trying to understand who your audience is so that you can build the most effective thing. The final piece of our puzzle is the way to go ahead and tell folks your story. And here's my secret to you: there is no best way. Any marketer that comes and tells you, I have the solution to how to break through with every client, and here it is, they're lying. It almost reminds me of when video first started in the marketing place. The buzzword became viral. Let's make this video go viral. And man, that used to make me shudder, because you can, as a marketer, you cannot make anything go viral. Your audience makes it go viral. So when you commit yourself to making something go viral, oof, you're in a dangerous spot right there, because you better really, really know that audience and have that home run in order to make that happen. And I would not want to be the guy that commits to that. We all strive to get it to go viral, but don't put it on yourself, put it on your audience to make it go viral. So the best way to tell a story then, it has to be comprehensive, it has to be complete, and it has to be beneficial regardless of the screen. If you were to come to my house at any given day, you would see that I often have my cell phone in my hand. I have a little stand on my desktop where I put my tablet so I can watch my Netflix. In the screen in the background in my home office, I have a big screen TV. So yesterday I was watching the Cubs on the big screen. I was watching Narcos on my tablet. I was on my phone tweeting and Instagramming throughout, because you got to tell people how you're feeling about what you're experiencing. If you don't tweet or Instagram, does it really happen? And then I had a magazine that I was flipping through because I just was needing more stimulation in my life. I am obviously at the extreme, but it speaks to you about how people connect. What was interesting, at a couple points throughout the evening, there was like this synergy that happened, and I was seeing something in all my spots that all matched up to the same story. McDonald's was the one that I remember seeing this. They had one of their McDonald's commercials on, and then on Netflix they had one of the little banner ads that popped up, and I had flipped to a page on my magazine with a McDonald's, and I'm like, whoa, this is like, I gotta go get a McDonald's. Guys, we're going to McDonald's today. So it's McDonald's. They were doing this great content storytelling that worked across every screen, every device, every spot that I was on. By the way, McDonald's gets content so much that they've made a commitment to double the amount of content they're creating. They have committed to something like 5,000 unique pieces of content this year to try to reach their audiences wherever they might be. What an amazing commitment that came straight from the top, from their CMO, their global CMO, to the power of storytelling. So consumers can continue to engage with content at record paces. So they're not just settling for one kind of screen, so we've got to be prepared for wherever that story might be, and we need to shift it wherever that might be. The key thing to remember is that the consumer doesn't want to feel like they're seeing a different story from that brand. They want it to feel connected. It might be a different spot of that story. If you read a book, if I'm reading a book, the best books, when I finish, it feels like, man, this was a whole story that made sense. As a marketer, I might give you chapter 1 on the tablet, I might give you chapter 2 on the screen, I might give you chapter 3, but overall, they better make sense together. So we need that cohesion in our storytelling to be effective. So I like to think of it, I'm a filmmaker, so I often talk my brain goes in filmmaking kind of cycles, and funny aside, I often hear soundtracks when I'm having experiences in life. Like if you're hearing a scary movie, you might hear that really daunting music, or if you're having an emotional moment, there might be that swell of music. As I walk in my life every day, I hear that music when I'm talking to my friends and stuff. I just hear it in the back of my mind. I think something might be off, but I'm okay with being me. So I look at storytelling then as cropping. How do I crop the story to give them, there's that big picture, I'm going to crop it and customize it and personalize it for whatever the audience might be. Always an opportunity. Figure out what your common thread is. What's my story? What parts of that story do I need to tell on the different spots that I'm telling it so that I can reach my audience and make sure that they're feeling reached. So when I craft the story to fit the need, I'm looking for what's the focus of my product marketing, what's the reason to believe that I'm trying to bring to life, what are the popular engagement formats that are there. I often with clients try to counsel them against shiny toy syndrome. Anytime a new app comes out or a new device, they're like, ooh, can we do all of our marketing, change it and go that way? I step them back and I say, what's your common thread? Who's your audience? Does this make sense? I don't need a Snapchat filter for a 68-year-old person that never uses Snapchat. So let me use that money somewhere else where it's going to be effective. I don't need to do a desktop PC opportunity for that 18-year-old that never has turned on a desktop in their life. All they care about is their phone. So you got to be able to tell that story in the right way. Final pieces of advice. So always remember to connect your story. And in order to make it valuable, you want to drive knowledge, action, emotion, or recommendation. All four of them if you can. But try to drive action of some sort. Try to drive change of some sort. In the past, people were used to, when I was growing up, you would just get a lot of content thrown at you and it became white noise. There was never a reason to do anything with it. In today's environment, our consumers are a little more savvy, a little more wants to be a part of what's happening. So we want to give them opportunities to do that. So we want to give them an opportunity to have knowledge that they can own and that they can share. We want to give them an action. Do I shop? Do I buy? Do I recommend? Tell someone about this? Do I donate? Do I, whatever I want to do, give them something to do with your content. Emotion, I want them to feel whatever I think it is. When I did that Game of Thrones, that last scene with the sword swiping across, we debated about that because we wanted to add it in. The client didn't think it was necessary, but that was the moment that sealed it for the audience because they were like, yes, now I see myself doing this. And true enough, after the person won it, they took it out of the plexiglass box and they were swinging the sword. So it connected on an emotional level. And then recommendation, we often forget that today, most of us have studied marketing where it's that funnel of the marketing engagement, where it's awareness all the way to the point of purchase. I am more of a believer in the continual cycle, where you still get awareness and you're getting information and you're at the point of purchase, but once you get to the point of purchase, you're rebounding again through a recommendation, either positive or negative. Now I'm telling people I love this product or I hate this product. Many of you probably Yelp or give other recommendations, or you feel motivated to say something. If you see something, you might tweet about it. Those are all recommendations. Let's help people tell the recommendation that we want them to tell. Let's give them a reason to feel good about our brand and want to tell others. They're our biggest advocates. So every piece of content needs to be connected, and I want to leave you also with the idea of consistency. Once you figure all this out, once you have your common thread identified, once you're telling your stories, be consistent, because the audience knows when you're not putting up with the things that you say that they should believe in. So I want to leave you with that. That is how you find your happily ever after. Be happy to take any questions if you have any.